Great. So here we are, 1st of December, the last month of the year. We were already just before, whilst we were still waiting, chatting a little bit about kind of how, how quick time goes, especially around this time of the year. I usually get this sort of little flash in sort of September, October or so. I kind of feel like, but the year's only just started. I was only just making plans and setting intentions. Surely it's only March. And then it just phew, flies by. Um, but yeah, at the same time, this can be a really nice time, you know. It's not just like the last month of the year, but it's also like this transition into winter and like a whole season ahead of us, really, of hibernation, really, and rest and transitioning and all these kind of things. So it can. Yeah, which kind of I feel like almost sometimes gets a little bit lost because of all of the Christmas mayhem, I guess, because then I don't know, in in most places, of course, you know, there's like everything is just speeding up with that. But um yeah, so this is the month for talking about holding space, as that is really, I guess, something that we all do. Sometimes yeah, that can be also challenging on different levels. Um, and it's also something that really comes with experience of doing this work, right? I guess like if we all sort of think back of the very first time that we ever did what we, trained to do and we didn't even probably think about what it meant to hold space, but just sort of got overwhelmed by it somehow because we just had no other choice. Um, So yeah, and it's also at the same time I kind of feel like it's also another one of those phrases that is being used so much these days. I mean, I use it all the time also. So that always poses the question for me, well, what does that actually mean? Holding space. What does that mean? Um, yeah, so these are kind of my reflections on this. I don't know whether any of you already thought about this a little bit. The email only obviously went this morning. I shared a little bit of a reflection already on the platform earlier, I think on the weekend. What does holding space mean to you? Do you find it easy? Is that the fun bit? Is that the hardest bit of the work? I don't know. What are the challenges? Yeah, Kate, go for it. I think you or Krisha go first and then Kate.
Yeah, for me, I think like generally it doesn't even feel that hard and I kind of enjoy it. But I feel like, if you have a nice group for which you're holding space and there is one person or two people who in some way are, disturbing or against everything or just being extra, then I find it a little difficult how to deal with that because like it could be a smooth experience, like just providing something for the other people, but then you have to maybe deal with these people who want or need extra attention and who maybe also are critical, more critical than everybody else, and you feel like they're extra critical. And it's not that your work is bad or something, but they just kind of know it better, or this kind of
Mm.
thing. um that sometimes can, yeah, bring me then to a place like where I'm doubting myself, even though I have a feeling it's not me but the other person. And I also yeah, find it a bit difficult how to deal with that and how to react to that in a way. So yeah, I think this is what I when I think back of a challenging situation where I felt, okay, so how do I handle that best?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That difficult client, that difficult student in the class that is disrupting the whole group. They get really annoying. Um, yeah, it's a that is an interesting one, and yeah, what I tend to observe when that happens is that they, they well, it depends. I mean, some people are just simply not nice, I guess, but most of the time, that is, it's a sign of their nervous system not being in a very good place. And in a way, that's the only way that they are able to show up in the world right now, being edgy, being critical, being attention seeking, being demanding, being, yeah, kind of not quite rational about situations and really focusing on their own needs. And very often, if somebody is so really self-focused and comes across also as very, just needy and demanding, that is probably because they are in the middle of burnout often. When you're in burnout, there is just no capacity to consider anyone else because you are effectively in survival mode to the point of actually not being able to function anymore potentially, but you're just sort of stuck in this pattern and keep going. And it means, biologically speaking, your whole attention just focuses on your own needs. There is literally no consideration for any other needs or anyone else's needs. It's like you end up more in a sort of tunnel vision in a way. There is kind of no, you can't really see the situation for what it really is, and you can't really hear what somebody is really saying, and that they might want to share something too. It's not rational, and it's not on purpose or because they don't like you anymore or they don't appreciate, what's kind of really going on. But rationally speaking, but the nervous system can't help but keep spiraling back to that little discomfort and this is what they need and that is not quite right and da 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 da. And it's so hyper sensitized in that way. And so for everybody else, it feels very disruptive, and disturbing and upsetting, and really upsetting the balance of things also. And you know, if that was the scenario that their nervous system is this highly dysregulated and that is literally the only way that they can show up in the world right now, then I guess that sort of is quite humbling because that probably took them quite a lot to even come to your class or come to your event, because they're not in a really good place. So, and they trust you enough to facilitate them and to hold space for them and all of that. So actually it means quite a lot when they come to your thing. Only obviously in the moment it can be really quite disruptive and upsetting. And then obviously because we co-regulate all together very quickly, somebody's upset nervous system can then, if we get a little bit like flustered with it or actually indeed find it disrupting, then we get activated and then we upregulate everybody else in the room and everybody else gets upset. So it was potentially not even, I'm not saying that that was your case, but it might not even be the person upsetting everybody else in the room, but just this kind of spiraling effect of everybody co-regulating in that direction. We've had this at my studio many years ago, before the pandemic. And there was somebody who um, was definitely neurodiverse and was struggling a little bit with really being in any form of social environments. And the main thing that was going on was that he needed to look at the time every 3 minutes. He just needed to know what the time was. And we don't have a big clock at the studio, and the clock is tiny and not very visible for most people. So, he was just looking at his watch. And then he also often did his own thing because he wouldn't remember a sequence very well or very easily, or, sort of coordination was a little bit difficult. Um, but some of the teachers found that really upsetting, and they kind of didn't really, so they got activated in their nervous system because they didn't have the tools to read the situation. First of all, they didn't know what was going on, and then they got activated by it. And obviously, that doesn't make the situation better at all whatsoever. And that really upset everybody else in the class, which then gets interpreted as this person's disruptive to everybody else. And I mean, I'm not even kidding. They got in touch with me as, as like he is a problem that I was supposed to deal with. I'm like, oh, get rid of him or something. I didn't like, okay, he comes to my class, he's fine. And I don't mean to like, blow my own trumpet or anything, but he what like that was, I'm like, but he's so nice, he's so sweet, and he loves coming to the yoga. And I know it takes a lot for him to come because, but I'm so happy that he does because it does the world of good for him. And and he's like, he hasn't got many contacts, and he sort of is trying really hard to come to this small space where there's only small groups so he doesn't get too overwhelmed. And I mean, who fucking cares that he looks at this time at his watch every 5 minutes, I mean, literally. And yeah, so it was very interesting, but it did spiral to the point that at some point he didn't come back, because just other teachers were. Yeah, it just and again they didn't do that with bad intentions or because they didn't like him or anything, but they didn't have the tools. They didn't really know literally in this instance how to hold that space for him. Whereas if you as a facilitator find that behavior like somebody checking his time every 3 minutes perfectly acceptable and it's literally no big deal, as I didn't, I mean, and there was just near zero. I had zero response to it because that's what he wanted to do. So he was perfectly fine and happy to do that. And so I'm quite sure that most of my other students didn't even notice that that is what he was doing because they were doing their own thing. It's like it's a yoga class. So you don't actually pay that much attention to everybody else. You're kind of like in your own thing and doing your thing. So you as the teacher are the only one who really notices these things. And I'm like, okay, so let him check his time and not be in the pose that I invited him to be in. Like, who cares? So yeah, I remember that vividly from some years ago. And it is difficult because we don't realize in that moment, we also just get a little bit activated and we get pushed a little bit out of our comfort zone. We've made a plan and we've prepared and we all sorts of things are going on there, right? And it's yeah, I guess that's holding space. Hi, Christina. We are talking about what holding space even means. And Krisha was saying that sometimes it's challenging when there are people, obviously, who need a lot of attention or maybe even get really critical. They criticize like your work or your class, and you're just like, okay, and you need to really sort of check in, like, what's going on? Is it their story or is it fair enough, something I could have done better. Mm. So yeah, that's where we're at.
I was thinking about not, I haven't, luckily, haven't had too many of these situations in a while, but like my partner the other day, he's in a project where someone regularly does that. And it's really disturbing. And it's interesting to think about, like, okay, because I tend to, when there's conflict or something, to take it personally and be like, what have I done? Or what should I be doing differently? And to have that distance to pause and be like, okay, and not to take it personally immediately, but to be like, this is about them and that, like you say, their nervous system and what they're, all the stuff that's going on behind someone that you can't see, that you don't know. And taking that space to, yeah, and also like the deep breath to calm yourself before jumping to some sort of need to make a immediate solution.
Mm.
Um, I was in a really lovely, really well held space this weekend with the author and academic Ray Johnson. I don't know if you know that. This weekend, actually, they came to Lisbon, which is really cool. Yeah.
And I'm not there. Great.
And you were there. Yeah, we spent 2 days doing work with them about embodied activism. And one thing I came away from with that about this idea of holding space is relevant for me in particular is just like the slowness, the freedom to take time and to not have to jump into solving things or to like yeah, to take the time that I need as a facilitator to process what's happening and to give people time to process what I'm giving as well. Um, and also like when dealing with difficult people, um, yeah, just not rushing to conclusions and maybe it's something that needs to be solved outside of the session, or later, or um, yeah, taking time. I think that's what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about holding space is it's okay to be slow.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when there are, spaces where there is a lot of things being processed and a lot of things are coming up for people and there's a lot of personal sharing, then I think, um, yeah, for me, that's like really the most important thing to pause and to not jump in with um, a comment or an opinion or a suggestion or a follow-up question or even an acknowledgement, yeah, 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 or, and to really pause and have a moment of stillness and let there be more breathing space because also the person is probably not done. Very often there is then something else that might want to be said. And that way you model the pause and the giving space. So everybody else in the space will eventually attune to that and not straight away jump in. Because sometimes you get that also, right? So that sort of somebody shares something and it really needs processing first, and somebody else is jumping straight in with their two pennies worth on this or their personal experience, taking it right back to them. And that's okay, right? We don't have to tell them off or we could also set boundaries, so there are different ways of dealing with this. So just hold that thought for a moment. Let's take a moment to process what was just being shared. And then we can move on to the next thing. Um, or, sometimes really just through modeling this, so like because you as the space holder, people turn to for like the next sort of comment or the response or the, whatever, like some kind of feedback or, whatever. And I, yeah, I'm like, I don't really need to give any. Like, why, also, this is the other thing, like, why do we as facilitators always feel like we need to have an answer to what people are sharing, or a comment, or,
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting. And all sorts of things are being shared and they just want to be heard, you know. My client earlier was uh, coming in and talking very fast and giving me the entire backstory of why she's so stressed right now. But, that was because her husband is terminally ill. And, these things are sometimes not easy to hear, of course. It's sad, depending on how well you know them. But there's also no need for me to now pick up on that and, say how sorry I am to hear this and that and, da 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 da. But like let her finish and actually at some point maybe come to share something how she's doing with all of this, right? So I'm like, yeah, that is a lot.
Hmm.
And there's that kind of not really much more that we always need to say to these things, right? Um, or even maybe to also being okay with, well, I actually genuinely don't have anything to say about this, or I don't know what to say about this or to this, or I don't have an answer. So it's also this other thing as the space holder and facilitator, we kind of feel like we always need to have something intelligent and wise and smart to say. And it's like,
I'm also really leaning into like in group conversation settings when you like do an exercise and then you're like, so and really leaning into just like long silence and being like, yeah, we'll just wait. We'll wait until something comes because I feel like oftentimes we it takes time, especially from a somatic thing, to then develop that into words. It takes time for these things to bubble up, and oftentimes I've noticed that like, oh, we rush too much to be like, oh, uncomfortable silence. And actually, I'm leaning into the enjoyment of an uncomfortable silence.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I think again, if we are modeling being comfortable in the silence, then I think people will attune to that, right? So people will attune to if we feel literally uncomfortable in that moment of silence, but if we are really grounded in those moments, then I think people will attune to that also. Eventually, it might take some time, I would say. Mm, yeah. Something else kind of came to mind also about this, people being really quite demanding and also maybe even critical and all of this. It is also uh, okay to set boundaries, no? If some behavior is really disruptive or not okay, none of this means like we should give everyone a get out of jail free card. No, this does not what it means. It's also really good to set very clear boundaries of what behavior is okay and what isn't okay. And that doesn't need to be done in front of the group, of course, like, but if something is like, if this person is really always, always super, super, super challenging for everything and everyone and disruptive in that way, then yeah, we will need to address this also. And say like, uh, this is what I need for these sessions. So how can we find a way? Uh, and yeah, it's a difficult conversation, I guess, to have. So how to even bring up that topic. Um, and yeah, it's, we're just reflecting back, something like I noticed that, during the class, blah, blah, blah. Or is there something, that could make you more comfortable or even more looking more for the solutions, like why, and being interested in why maybe their behavior is that way and trying to figure it out. Because, they might have been projecting it as criticizing you, but it might also be a case of just not having quite identified even for themselves what their need is. And you know, there could be a solution to it, like they need to sit on a chair, or I don't know. I mean, there's a bit of a silly example, but sometimes it is that also. Um, and yeah, and then they know that they have been seen, so they can stop playing up. Sometimes it's also that. Yeah. Hmm. So what else does it mean, holding space? Any other thoughts on that? Or what are the difficulties? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's another thing that I'm wondering about. Um, so it's a bit like, so yeah, the question came up when or when Kate was talking also about, giving that space for silence and like, yeah, just giving that space for things also to be digested or to emerge. And I was wondering, like, when you prepare something or when you give a class or workshop or whatever, like about the kind of thing between, structure and spontaneity, because I feel sometimes that's kind of tricky because you want to, of course, plan something and you have a certain kind of time, amount of time. And yeah, but of course, you don't want to be rigid, but you want to kind of react to what's there in the room. And maybe that means you will have to change something that you before planned. Or so, like, it's more my question how maybe you, from your experience, deal with that. Or, yeah, because I feel it's of course also a matter of experience. Probably the more experienced you are, the easier that thing is to juggle. But so maybe you have some insights from your experience how you deal with that.
That's a really great question. And I I mean I would definitely look at that from a trauma-informed perspective. Um, and there is something really good about structure and knowing upfront what to expect. And so, that starts with, your class description or the description of your offering being really clear, including that maybe that you use music in the class. I personally find that really upsetting if I go to a class and there's like, I don't like music in classes. So I wish people would really put on their class description, this class is music. Um, but so that you're really informed about what you're signing up for, right? And that's important because that creates safety. Any form of confusion, body says no, right? And so the spontaneous thing. So I've signed up to a hatha yoga class that, has a meditation and some pranayama in it. And then suddenly the teacher goes, "Oh, it's summer, the sun's out, sun's shining. Let's put on some dance tunes and kind of have a disco." And it's like, yeah, great spontaneity, but also really not what I signed up for. I mean, I'm being really silly in that example, but you can see how that could be upsetting for somebody who has a dysregulated nervous system who needs to know what is what and what's happening. And it goes then kind of further. If you are teaching a trauma-informed class, you might even at the start of the class give a broad overview of how the session will unfold. And I've been, I don't do that every class though, for sure. But I have a dear colleague I work with, a good friend of mine, who really has this down to the T and would do it every time, no fail. And when we work together, we go to each other's sessions and classes and whatever we are doing. And every time I sit there in any of her classes, and she gives this outline of how this whole thing is going to unfold and what to expect. Like even my nervous system, even though I wasn't like on the edge or anything, and I know her and I kind of already knew what was going to happen, but just I'm like, oh, it's like a little comfort blanket. And it's nice. It's really nice to be in that kind of space. It sets it up. And yeah, sometimes we look at that as being, you use the word rigid, and and some of us are even kind of really almost wired to struggle with anything that is sort of boundaried and all of that. Whereas I think the nervous system in principle would appreciate it. Not of course not everyone always, but it gives safety, it gives clarity, harmony, and you can relax into it. There's nothing unfamiliar about to pop in, because anything that's unfamiliar, our nervous system again says, "Mm-mm, don't like it." So yeah, that kind of means, we can apparently not be so spontaneous. I don't know. Um, so there's that side to it. And then of course you have I don't know, you have a class and you have people in there that you don't know and they have particular requirements or they can't do what you planned or it just doesn't seem to be landing or you're taking way more time on something, I mean, of course, like I change my lesson plans also sometimes because I plan too much or it's just not landing or I need to find a different, tact or something. Um, and yeah, of course, you adjust to the people that are there. And I think that comes with experience. I think as we continue to teach, to be able to actually stay within the framework, but then adjust accordingly. And if you're really going way off, you could announce it also. I was like, I hadn't really planned that. I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little bit off, but we're going to come back to blah, blah, blah. But I just want to spend a little bit more time on this because I'm noticing X, Y, and Z, you know. So we can always announce that we are deviating a little bit from what we had planned so that, again, that feels like there's a container for that and it's not completely random and all over the place, right? Um, So that's a way of doing it also. I'm not such a great fan of doing, like in the classic yoga teacher training, we are taught on how to do all of these adjustments and modifications. Now I'm using a million different props and da 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 da. But that always singles people out because there's always like, oh, and if you can't reach the floor, then put a block under your hand or, whatever. Or if you want to challenge yourself a little bit further, wrap your arm around your body 3 times. But it means like one student is better than the other, right? So, yes, sometimes we need to pay a little bit of individual attention, but it could also be that we just have everybody use blocks or does not use the word if, basically. Just give very like neutral options. Put your hand on the floor or rest your elbow on your knee. One or the other. No, if you want, if it's difficult, if you want more, if you can't do it, or I don't know, any of that, because it's irrelevant. Um, and and then finding ways that everyone can explore in their own way. So it's really like when you're moving a little bit more into the somatics world, then of course there isn't one way of doing any particular move. So then all of this we don't need anymore, which is great. People can explore in their own way. Yeah. I don't know if that is really answering your question. Was it kind of helpful?
No, I think like it did because I come from like how to say my teacher or my teachers, they are very big on having a strong container and all these kind of things. So, and I also from my experience personally, when I'm in their container, it really helps to relax. So for me, it was good that you also said that this is really something you feel like it helps people to be held and to know what to expect. And that you, of course, have sometimes these people who really, really need this, for whom it's not just nice, but it's just really that they need it. And also, I didn't mean, and when I said like a spontaneous to really deviate a lot, but like more like what you said, that you're kind of within the, like, let's say program point, you adapt a little things and stuff. But so for me, it was just a really also good reminder, a good thing that you said, like that this container is just really good to have, because I sometimes see it in, when I'm training other programs or things, that people are very spontaneous and whatever. And so sometimes I'm like, yeah, maybe I should also, be a bit more like this or not, but I feel, I like a good container. And so now also hearing you say that just kind of confirms for me that that's also the way to go, and that well, yeah. So thank
Oh,
you.
creating strong containers and safe spaces is never going to be the mainstream and the popular option.
Yeah.
It is what everybody really needs, but of course, it's not the thing that sells. That's just the way it is. So we have to keep strong. Keep doing this. Yeah. Any more thoughts on this? Or I also really want to open the floor to, well, maybe you have some other questions. Doesn't no, our Monday calls don't have to be on just on the topic. All questions are welcome. Any further iterations of new business cards or flyers? Or yes, Rena, go for it.
Well, I'm just staying a little bit with this holding
Mhm.
space. If it's for me, it's coming also. Maybe it's the time of winter, and also the things I'm like having my perspective on right now is just holding space with me and with um, yeah, just with me, and also a little bit what Kate just said with being silent. And I mean, I'm not working with groups right now, but I really feel how important it is to yeah, to hold the space for me, so that I have like a good ground for the next year or whatever will come.
Yeah.
So that's what I am with, and yes, and this the silence, that's uh, just a challenge. Yeah. So, and I'm what I do. I'm just sitting and really do nothing. I mean, I'm not. I sit in front of the window, look outside. The birds are going, and I have like trees and everything, and I take time just to be there and to just be there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is this time. No, yes, this is the time of the year to do this. Um, and for me, it's kind of asking for more depth. No, it's about this kind of going in. It's not always a comfortable time, because we're having to sort of, yeah, I mean, reflecting always means like we also reflect on some of the shit stuff and, the kind of things that actually don't serve us and all of this. So when we are more in silence and we make space for ourselves and with ourselves and sit more in silence and all these things, we kind of, I guess we know and we can also feel it, how that turns into like more lightness or maybe clarity or something like when we know that what kind of where it can take us, and there is this sort of, or maybe sometimes there's even a little bit of an expectation. I don't know, because obviously it's never guaranteed, right? But we kind of know when we create space and also we are making room for new and good things to come in. But of course, like the actual process of sorting through all of the mess and the muddy bit and all of that feels really a bit, I don't really have proper good words for this, but it feels like it doesn't always feel comfortable, right? There's a heaviness to it. It's like it's kind of a bit knotted, it's twisted, it's a bit, it can be tight, it can be all sorts of things, right? And we have to sit with it. And we sit with it in silence and we sit with it a little bit more. Um, and this is the time for it. It's good. And it's that for me, this process feels like, okay, deeper, 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 deeper. And like we also have this no, in the English language, which I quite like, is this digging deep. It's like really, oh, you really have to. It's a process, no? So you don't slide through and go deeper. You don't kind of just like, whoops, oh now I'm like in the depth. No, it's like you have to work. You have to work on it. It's a process. Um, and the sitting with ourselves in silence, it's also that is the work, right? Uh, yeah, it's a good time. I kind of like this time. It feels a bit, but still, yeah, where you can come back to self, right? We can come back to ourselves.
I was feeling quite like proud of myself today because I was going through my calendar for 2026 because some work just came in and I was like, how does this work? And yeah, I decided not to do something in January and to push it to March or April or something like that. I was like, yay.
Yes,
Said
good.
no. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that like I could focus on my own like internal stuff and the learning and the things that the nurturing of my own practice that I want to do rather than like jumping right into teaching again.
Mm.
I was like, okay, no, I'm gonna like really earmark January as just my time to study and to be in my with myself rather than, I have the time free, so I should try and teach and try to do some work. It's like, no, I want to use that month to like nurture all the rest of the teaching that I'll be doing throughout the year. So
Mm.
it's like it's my small victory.
It's a massive victory. I love it. It's so good. It is so good. And so needed because I think it does come from that place of digging deep. I think part of that is really, and this is what the autumn really is about. Um, it is it is about um, really realizing what is no longer needed, what no longer serves us, and to get rid of it. To really like clear house, to clear up your shit, basically. So anything that is no longer really needed or serving you. And it does take some time often to realize, but I love this and it's for the greater good and I want to be doing it, or I need to earn money, or there's kind of a million reasons why we're kind of not realizing that something isn't actually serving us anymore. And so it is a bit of a process. And sometimes letting go of these things or saying no to something, yeah, it's also a bit of a process. It's not always easy, oh, for sure. But this is really the time. Autumn is the time for this. And to get more clarity, um, it's that's really like the quality uh, of this season from a Chinese medicine point of view. Um, yeah, releasing what is no longer serving us. And space, making space. Mm, yeah.
Yeah, Catherine, I can almost like after every sentence you were saying, like I was, yes, yes, yes. Like you speak out of what my heart feels like the whole autumn. Yeah. Um, Maybe I can just share a little bit. Like I was in a massive mess the last month. I could not even take time at the mentorship program because I had such a overload of work, but there were so many interesting things like yeah, in this process going deeper in this nervous system work and holding space, and I had so many really nice recognition about that. For example, I'm also a social worker working in the psychiatric clinic, and I had this job for 2 months, just like a determined job. And at the same time, like my business, like the yoga and the somatic work and the work with women was really raising. So it was great. Like I had people in classes and it was nice. but I could not enjoy it anymore because I was so overloaded. And then the first time, and I don't know, it's so funny. Sometimes maybe you also know that from certain situations. Why do I just feel that now? Because I felt then, hey, I'm taking care of people like the whole day, like I'm holding spaces, like I'm holding all these crises. And then in the evening, I go and hold 15 people, like for 3 hours. And it was just like such an overload. So I cannot give any more. So why am I doing this since years? But like the nice process was for me like now I feel it and it's way too much. And I came to a certain pain point where I really recognize I cannot do that anymore, no longer, not once again. And that was really good. Yeah. This recognition of like holding space too much, yeah, then I don't have it for myself. Yeah. And I was proud of myself because I also could postpone a few things. And it was also really interesting about the whole, like observing myself in my nervous system. Like maybe that's also sometimes some things, because we are in this work of facilitating and in this body work, which we are like giving and facilitating. And sometimes I feel like when I'm teaching yoga, then I become more slow, I become more grounded, and it also helps myself. And then after class, even if I work the whole day, and I feel better. But it can be also like a dangerous situation because like my body has a boundary, it's already empty and I'm doing it even though, and afterwards I feel better because I also did kind of body work. But it for me it has also a dangerous thing in it. And I was also recognizing like the I have all these somatic tools. I'm doing it regularly with myself when I'm teaching, but also at home. Um, but like my general state of nervous system is like the base. It's used to movement, and that was also a very very good observation. Like, oh, okay, I'm really much used to move all the time. That's what you were saying, Catherine. I think like um, it's the familiar thing. And that I also sometimes have this feeling, oh, but I like it so much and I would love to do another course. But actually, then I saw, like, okay, no, what I need is space, and what I need is more safety, and what I need is it's maybe not silence. I can hold silence good, but um, yeah, more this calmness. That was also, yeah, maybe you have to say something about that, our own somatic experience in the facilitating, and that it can be also a little bit like a conditioned thing for our bodies.
I could even be conditioned, I guess, and thought of that angle. But yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I like teaching a class because, I enjoy it and I somatically go into that calmer, quieter space. I attune from a nervous system point of view. So, in principle, after teaching a class, it also nourishes me. Or it can, doesn't have to, no, of course. It can nourish me. Or, giving a treatment, for sure. It's like an hour and a half of meditation. By the end of it, I have no questions. It's really a beautiful space to be in, and I feel nourished by it. Um, you've been on the training, or a couple of you have been on my trainings, and it's 2 weeks of intense space holding for a group, going through the motions really on every level. And it fills me up so much. I mean, I'm literally like in my happiest place. and I feel so, my heart could not be fuller. Even though, sometimes you guys challenge me endlessly, but never mind. Anyway, um, it fills my heart, it fills me up. I'm like, wow. But after the 2 weeks, I'm done. I'm cooked. No, like big time. It takes, so it is possible to be really nourished by something on one level, and that is how you want to feel about your work. But holding and the container for the longer and more intense, and all of this, like the more it takes off you also, and you need to rest and you need to recuperate. And replenish and really nourish yourself physically, emotionally, mentally. I feel like after like a training for 2 weeks, I'm like, I just don't want to speak. I do not want to open my mouth for a day. Like I just need to, my jaw is like, ugh. Too much talking. And I feel it, but and I sometimes feel it more, and sometimes I feel it less. Um, But this is the thing, you want to be really in a place where you can feel really nourished by your work, where it really fills you up, where it fills your heart. And I was in a place a couple of years ago where my work wasn't doing that anymore. And so then maybe, yes, you got to a place where you were overgiving and not pausing and not resting and really being super, super, super strict with your and disciplines with your self-care routines. So I can do what I do and it fills me up because I've worked really hard on my rhythms and my rituals and processes of taking me time, not spending the whole time with the group, taking 2 days off after a training, whatever it is. So like lots of kind of things, and there's no compromise on it. It's so easy to compromise on, like you come back and somebody invites you to do blah, and you just, yeah, great, let's do this, and you're just gonna crash. But the other reason I was really not feeling fulfilled by my work anymore was because another part of my business was really, really stressing me. And so I had a lot of cortisol in my system. I had a lot of stress residue still from the pandemic of having to fight for my studio. And then I ended up running my studio on my own. And it was relentless and not really giving anything back, and kind of very much felt like I was doing this for nothing. And da da da, and it was going on and on and on, and everything about the studio was just becoming a frustration rather than the joy. And then that really took so much out of me and my nervous system and my capacity, that when I was then booked for a treatment, or getting ready for a training I was running, so the things that I really love, that are really my work, I was like, oh, I gotta give this class now. I've got to give, I wish I didn't have to give this treatment. So it was becoming then too much. And that was it was good in that I realized it. It's so easy to then just sort of keep in this hamster wheel and keep going and going and going. And I mean, for sure, I was probably in it for a little bit too long already, before you then suddenly realize, hang on a second, something is way off here. Like the thing that I love doing the most and that really fills me up and that I'm also best at, in fact, is like I'm beginning to resent it. And that is really no good. Really no good. Right. So you make some big changes, you know, and you need to really look at things really hard, and like potentially, I was almost in the place of letting go my studio entirely, and that was my baby. I mean, I put so much into the space. We've grown it, we've created so much. I mean, but I was almost at the point of just getting rid of it altogether. I didn't in the end, but I changed everything significantly so that It really changed. And immediately I noticed the difference in the next training course I was then running. I was like, wow, I can just be here and enjoy like this work that I love. I don't love, anything more than doing this work. So I was like, oh, good. No. Um, so yeah, as soon as we start resenting the thing that we kind of supposed to love the most, it's alarm bells. We should take a really good look at where that's coming from and what is
Mm.
depleting you. And it could be that we are doing too much of the one thing that we love doing the most. It's fine. Like if somebody teaches 20 yoga classes a week, which I know people who do that, I'm like, you know, and it's like, yeah, they love teaching classes, but they are going to end up resenting teaching because they teach way too many classes a week. But it could be obviously also another unrelated factor
Mm.
or another part of your business or whatever it is.
Mm. Yeah, I finally I came to the conclusion, or it was very obviously because I think the last time I shared it was also I was a bit at that point of, oh, should I let go the studio and the studio management because it was way too much, and yeah, not really anymore that thing I want to do. But I'm over that. So yeah, it's also my baby, but for sure, like I really know I cannot do both caring jobs at the same time anymore. So it was a big um yeah, swift, like I need to let go the social work job.
Mm.
And luckily the other things are raising, so that's cool. So
Great. See? No, but that is also, when we make these changes, they feel scary and they need a lot of bravery and all of this at the time. But then you really open the doors for so much more to come. It's like that's just kind of the law of the universe most of the time.
oh, that's really nice, nicely said. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Other questions or anything to share? Yeah, so I also decided to slow a little bit down for December. You saw maybe, I've mentioned it already a couple of times. I just kind of felt like it wasn't the right month to do another Ideas Lab. And I just took the liberty to move that to January, um, where maybe we can all be a little bit more inspired by new beginnings. Um, and there will be one webinar this month about boundaries. Boundaries is great, 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 great topic. Um, and Michelle, who is a very good friend and colleague of mine, we run the Somatic Toolkit for Resilient Nervous System together. Some of you know her. Oh my goodness, I mean, she is so good with her boundaries. I really admire her for her boundaries. And she's so clear. It's like, yeah, when she takes a day off, it's like I I don't even bother calling her, basically. Um, it's brilliant, really amazing. So yeah, I can't wait to have her share a little bit on that. And I think it's a really interesting topic in that I think some of us struggle with boundaries for a whole bunch of reasons. Boundaries feel yucky, boundaries feel difficult to set. It's not necessarily always easy to set your boundaries. They get a little bit blurry very easily because it would just be the easier thing to say yes or, to something. So it's a really interesting topic for quite a few reasons, really, because it's not always so easy to be so clear on your boundaries. And so the way Michelle and I really look at boundaries is it is a major part of your self-care, of your meaningful self-care. That's where it sits. It can sit in so many different areas, I guess, but for me, that is really where it sits. It's like if you think about all of the things that we need to do and what self-care really means, setting clear boundaries and having them and maintaining them and da 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 is for me like very far at the top of the list of things to do, if not really right at the top. Right at the top. So yeah, fitting, I think, maybe quite nicely also into these conversations that we just had. So yeah, that will be next week on Monday, I think, Monday evening. And yeah, and then we can begin to slow down for the month, I guess, and rest, take a pause, bit of stillness. And then in January, I did also send this, but I do want to say this because I am excited about this. I think it's like literally the 2nd or the 3rd of January, whatever that first Friday is. I think it's the 2nd of January. Because it is either full moon or new moon or something really important. Or maybe on the Saturday, I can't remember. But anyway, Martina was very, very excited about that day. So we're going for it. And she lives her life by the astrology. So very excited to start a quarterly kind of check-in with Martina. What all of the planets and stars and moons have to say about kind of like our focus, really. So I've been working with her for some time now. She's also different, but she really helps me with clarity on my focus and what to focus on. And I would say that I don't really fully understand. I'm not, well, I literally don't understand most of it really when she talks about the 5th house of this and that and blah, blah, blah. Well, you need to translate that. But when she does translate it, it is so clear. So I really appreciate that about her. And there's just nothing wishy-washy about it whatsoever. And when you decide to go, okay, let's lean into that. Let's lean into this idea because that's really what she's offering. She's offering questions to lean into and ideas to lean into. She doesn't say like, oh, on the 16th of February, you meet your future husband or something like this. Not like none of that nonsense. But when you then do lean into it, it does bring so much more, focus to things. So I thought that was quite a nice thing to bring into Elevate, having this quarterly check-in to set a little bit the tone. Not only now we're sort of setting the tone on a monthly basis with our themes, but also having a kind of quarterly setting the tone for things, and then you can do with that whatever you want or not. So I mean, yeah. So make sure you mark that in your diary because that's going to be gold. And aside from that, there isn't really much new from my side. I'm flying back to Lisbon tomorrow. Rina, go for it.
I didn't really get it. You put like a new event in the
Yeah,
Elevate thing? Okay, and that's just new, right? Because
it is new,
okay,
exactly. So
okay.
every quarter, at the beginning of each quarter, Martina will join us for like an astrology-led
Ah,
setting focus for the quarter. Sorry, I
okay.
probably
I
wasn't
I didn't
very
really.
clear.
So we will. You made something where she is. It's not your meeting, and then you tell us.
No, no, no. She is coming here and
Okay.
joining us, giving effectively a kind of workshop, I guess. So they're very much the structure of them will be like the webinars, only that she will definitely come every quarter and it's like, yeah, sort of setting focus. Yeah. Kate, do you know her? Yes, you do know her from Elevate already. Yeah. Nice. Anything else from anyone?
I have just a question. I'm from Kate. What are you doing? I mean, the other ones I already know, and you, I'm just curious what you're
Yeah,
doing.
sure. I'm a singer and I lead a thing called the Embodied Voice, which combines voice, movement, and improvisation. So I work with embodiment to teach about the voice, and I work with voice to teach about embodiment, and one-to-ones and in groups, and yeah, a creative practice.
Yeah.
It's good
Very.
practice to try and say it like in a little chunk.
Elevate.
Kate also lives in Lisbon. And I don't know how long we've known each other for some years now, right? So, really nice. And she has a very beautiful voice. And she was one of the guest facilitators at the in-person Elevate event when I launched it in Sintra. So, very excited to have her here also. Gina, do you want to maybe say what you do?
Yeah, I like this year, since this year I do Thai yoga massage, and yes, and I talk about death and like finding your own connection to death. And well, I am a nurse, but like the dance and improvisation is that's like my river I swim in.
Thank you. Uh, Lovely, thank you. It was today I just at some point somebody was talking, I was just reminded of uh yeah, like really the idea and the intention and what I was hoping for with Elevate to simply, have us coming together and sharing what's happening and what's coming up and other people, hearing it and seeing us and being heard by them and yeah, just having that space and um, because I find anyway, well, a lot of my friends do also something similar to what I do, so it's kind of nice because you have somebody to talk to about all of this stuff. But it can also be really quite lonely, and our partners, mothers, sisters, best friends, normally don't really want to know about any of this stuff because they do different things and they don't always get it. So it can also feel really lonely, and yeah, it's just really lovely to hear from everyone and have some sharing. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Hopefully I'll see you next week with Michelle, but of course it will also be recorded. And if I don't see you, have a restful December or joyful December. I don't know, with lots of Christmas parties. I don't know what rocks your boat. Have a lovely
Plenty.
Christmas. Oh, because yeah, you came late. Rena has an advent calendar made by her mother. We are so jealous.
I have to share it with Tobias.
Okay. You say, but this is from my mother, so I think you can like pull trumps now. And so anyway, enjoy. Have a nice
Thank
evening,
you.
everyone.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye
Bye.
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 Take care.
Bye bye.